All right, let's take that stuff that we were just doing and build on it. So the next thing we're going to introduce is the idea of an event handler. An event handler is code that you can sprinkle into your HTML that will call JavaScript when different things happen to that code. So the most obvious of this is called onClick, and that just happens when you click on something. And then you say, okay, when onClick happens, do this JavaScript. And so right now we'll just have it alert the number 5 out when you click the H1. So if you click anywhere on this H1, it'll say alert 5. Well, first you're going to be like, that's kind of silly. Why would you ever want to do that? Well, just wait. You'll see. So you click right here and it just pops up and says 5. But what we can do more than just write into here, because if you were to write a lot of JavaScript and do complicated stuff, this is going to get really gnarly. Instead, what you want to do is have this reference instructions that are up here. And to do that, we're going to create what's called a function. And you can give these functions any name that you want, but we're just going to call this like my first function. The important thing is that functions don't have any weird characters in them, and there's no spaces in their names. I should have mentioned there's also not supposed to be any spaces in variable names either. When you make a function, this is the basic structure. You use the word function, then the name that you want to call it, double parentheses, and then curly brackets. And every single thing inside of these curly brackets are the instructions that you want to run when the function is called. So you can think of functions as kind of like brushing your teeth. Methods are like your heartbeat. You're born, you know how that works. You didn't have to learn how to make your heart beat. But functions are things that you've learned over time. And so when you brush your teeth, you don't stand up in front of the mirror and think up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. Instead, you have just simply learned that. And so when you put in front of the mirror and you brush your teeth, you just kind of in your brain say, run the function brush teeth. And so that's the same thing, is you put a set of instructions inside of these curly brackets, and they won't ever happen until you tell them to. So what I'm going to do is take this first name, last name, all this stuff. I'm going to cut it and put it inside of the function. I want to point out really quick, indentation is going to be your friend. So just be careful with indentation. It'll help you see where problems are. But you see that this curly bracket has wrapped all the way to this one, and these 4 lines of code are inside that function. And so check this out. Before, when I loaded this page, it would immediately alert out first name, last name. Now, if I hit refresh, it doesn't do that. That's because this function doesn't ever run until it's told to run. The same way that you don't just brush your teeth willy-nilly, you decide to brush your teeth. You got to be told to brush your teeth. Same thing here. You have to tell JavaScript to run my first function. And so down here in onClick, instead of saying alert 5, we're going to say, hey, run that function up there. My first function. I'll get rid of the 5. And so now this just says, hey, go look up the set of instructions called my first function and do them all. And so now, if I hit save, refresh, it's not until I click on hello there, click, that now the alert box pops up. So that's pretty cool. I now know how to use event handlers and functions together to make certain things happen. We still haven't gotten to the super cool part, which is how do we use JavaScript to modify HTML. But the basics are starting to get laid, where we have functions that are collections of instructions that get named. So there's the instructions, there's the name. And we have event handlers that call those instructions. And these instructions are never run until they're told to. So again, kick the tires on this one. See if you can get a function that does some things other than simply alerts out a name. So for instance, we'll make this a little bit more interesting. I'm going to create a variable up here called how many donuts? And I'm going to say 0. And then in here inside my function, every time you click my first function, my many donuts is going to be replaced by how many donuts plus 1. And then we're going to alert out how many donuts. And so now, every time I run this function, 1, 2, 3, etc., will happen every time you run that function using the event handler. So take these basic ideas, these little building blocks, these little Legos, and see what you can come up with. On our next video, we're actually going to start modifying the HTML using JavaScript, which is where it's really cool.